Hello everyone. Welcome to this webinar on delighting your clients at every step of wealth management journey. Today I have with me Swaminathan Ganesan, Head of Business Consulting APAC, Newgen Software, and David Wager, Director Private Banking and Wealth Management at Sinpals. Over to you, Swami and David, for sharing your insights on the session.
Great, thank you very much, Archer. So just a short background about myself before we get into an introduction around Simpulse. So my name is David Wager. I'm a director with Simpulse Management Consulting. I've been with the company now for about 2 years, and prior to joining Simpulse, I was with Credit Suisse for 10 or 11 years, both here in Singapore and in the UK as well. Simpulse Management Consulting, just as a short introduction, we work with the majority of the clients, financial services clients. You can see some of our largest clients on the left-hand side of this slide. Proud to share that we have over 1,200 consultants globally, and with a very strong APAC presence as well, around about 800 consultants across 11 cities at the moment. And also have over 100 ecosystem partners, which allow us to really provide guidance and support to our clients across all of the areas that they're facing challenges and where they need some advice and some guidance. And of course, indeed, here we are today with Newgen as well, who's one of our partners, and we'll share a little bit more about the work that we've done with them in the past. If we could just go to the next slide, we can get into some of the coverage of what I'll look at today. So today, what we wanted to do from Simpulse was provide sort of 10, 12-minute overview of the market trends, the challenges, and some of the opportunities that we're seeing in the wealth management space, and really with a view on how do we make sure that we can encompass and take this into account when we're looking to delight our clients at every stage of the wealth management journey. So on the first slide, we get an overview then of what the sort of standard practice looks like for the clients today. Just want to check that we're on to the next slide if we can. Still seeing the introductory slide at the moment. Okay, great. Thank you very much. So the slide that you're seeing here, then you'll probably all be familiar with. This is the standard client lifecycle management overview, and all of the components here of working with your clients, from the initial lead or the prospecting through to then the onboarding of that client, facilitating the account opening, then the bulk of your relationship with that client, where you would look to advise, provide that guidance, support them with products, and performing periodic client reviews as well, and then through to the end of that relationship, where the closure and the offboarding. And here we've shared some of those common pain points that I'm sure can be quite relatable. And again, from left to the right, with the lead and the prospecting, very much can initiate an initial poor client experience. Things can be very much manual, paper-based, and that can then bleed into as well into the client onboarding, where you're seeing multiple handoffs, lack of ownership internally, long turnaround times, clients being contacted multiple times for the same information. Again, souring that relationship further, and then also can spread into the actual overall experience with the client, where maybe antiquated systems, processes, etc., mean that we can't quite meet the client's needs when we want to. We can't provide them with on-demand reporting. We can't do holistic client reviews. We can't share with them key insights from our CIO rooms as well. And these are all the kinds of challenges that seem quite obvious from the outset, but when we actually put it into a relationship, can really sour that relationship, and then if it's not done well, can result in that need to then eventually close and offboard that client. So I want to have a look then at some of the overall trends that we're seeing in the market and how this is changing, because that particular life cycle journey has been quite consistent for a number of years now, but we're starting to see changes that means there are actually quite a few places where this traditional model and these common pain points may be no longer relevant. So on to slide 5, we've highlighted across the next 2 slides 8 key pain points that we are looking at. And before we look at those trends, the best thing is for us to check, well, is it still worthwhile? Are we still seeing a growth in AUM? Are we still seeing a development in the market? And just pulled out a couple of figures from some other publications here, just to really set the context for you. So earlier research from PwC, some of the work that they've done with Refinitiv and Preqin, highlighting that They are expecting to see AUM grow continually by 5% through to 2027. And this is then supported by additional research at BCG, where overall they're forecasting financial assets around about $329 trillion by 2027. Looking at this from a regional lens, APAC is expected to outgrow North America in terms of the AUM growth by around about 50%. And then even more focused locally here today in Singapore, we're expecting this to see Singapore being particularly well suited for to bring in those assets with accelerated cross-border asset growth around about 9% compounded annual growth through 2027. And this is really the result of Singapore benefiting from its status as being a safe haven and also seen predominantly as its gateway into the rest of APAC. And then be remiss of me not to highlight maybe some changes in the overall structure of this wealth as well. So on the right-hand side, some additional research by McKinsey that's supported by others in the market as well, is that there's a rising mass affluent market, the millionaire next door, and the expectation or the understanding here is that the assets, the AUM, could expand significantly across APAC in this space, and doubling by through to 2026. And more importantly for this is that there would be a significant driver of the revenue growth as well. And in some of the accounts that we looked at, the accountants say that this could produce incremental revenue of $20 to $25 billion over the next 3 years for APAC. So with that scene set, we can look at some of the trends that I've pulled out. I think it's probably worth highlighting that there are, of course, many trends, and the experiences that you're having with your clients, they may differ slightly. I think that's just what makes it so exciting at the moment as well, that the situation is changing, that people are having unique experiences. So it'd be great at the end when we do Q&A to hear some about the experiences that you have from your own clients as well. So here we pulled out four initial points. Starting then on the top left around financial planning awareness, there's common understanding now that investors are increasingly becoming aware of the need for financial planning and some of the benefits of that as well. They have abundance of information. There's been a proliferation of things like YouTube videos for the younger generation, or even TikTok financing videos, which is just highlighting the benefits of having a financial plan in place. Whether or not if you're an early investor of doing something like a repeat subscription where you're just doing $100 a month into a savings account, whether or not you're then into your mass affluent where you're looking for more structured financial advice, this understanding of a need for financial planning is exploded. And as a result of that, there are a number of individuals who are now saying, well, actually, maybe I do need to speak to a financial planner to help me achieve some of these goals. If I do want to retire early, the FIRE movement we've seen has been in the news quite recently. I think it's growing in popularity as well. And these are the points that people are asking about when they want to see if they can actually if they can get that support and that guidance from financial services. It's interesting to note, though, just before I move on to the next point, that while we talk about financial planning awareness, I originally wrote this for full transparency, saying that there had been an increase in financial literacy. And when I went away and did some further research, I read a couple of papers. There was a paper on from the Journal of Financial Literacy and Wellbeing, where they looked at current financial literacy rates in Singapore, and based on three specific questions, which were raised based around inflation, on risk, and interest rates, only 40% of those that were asked these questions were actually able to answer all three correctly, and therefore be tagged as financially literate. So I think there's still a lot of room to grow. But the fact that we're expanding the proportion of people that are aware of the financial needs, coupled with this fact that maybe they don't know all of the answers, even if they think that they can get an initial baseline from Googling, this is going to be a great baseline for us to be able to move forward and make sure that we can offer services around that. Onboarding continues to be a major topic. Clients increasingly aware of the need or want for smoother onboarding. And I think a lot of this is coming from how their experiences are in other industries. If you want to buy insurance and you can do that online and it's done immediately. If you wanted to avail some video streaming services, this can be done immediately. If you want to open a bank account, it can take a little bit longer. And then if you want to open a private bank account, well, you may not need to sit around for 4 to 6 months. And these expectations are now shifting where this is just, it's no longer acceptable for clients. And we have heard and spoken to some EAMs who have worked at the other end of the spectrum with private banks who have said that they will now actually just not open accounts with particular private banks because the onboarding process is so stringent, so challenging that they just don't want to onboard their clients to that. And there were some other examples that we'd heard as well around clients of these private banks being the EAM being contacted and asked to provide data seemingly at random after a long tenure relationship with the bank for some KYC or AML information going back a number of years as well. So how do we address those points to make sure that we're not losing the business as a result of that? The improving of the digital capabilities, I think, is probably one that's quite obvious to a lot of people. We saw over the rise of the pandemic, a lot of people were remotely working, but in parallel to that, people started to look to their devices, online, mobile, increasingly to get things that they wanted. And now there's just a minimum expectation that these things are going to be in place. Interestingly, though, when I was looking through this, there were some good information that there was a report created by Publicis Sapient that they did in conjunction with another fintech, and their research showed that while 89% of investors preferred to use a mobile app, 46% of the millennials that were asked said that they also preferred face-to-face meetings, while 40% of them said that they still preferred phone calls. So it sounds like an interesting approach where actually we need an omnichannel piece here to be able to successfully delight our clients. And we can't just purely rely on a digital world. Finally, on the bottom right-hand side here, we're looking at the increasing costs of the traditional model. Your RM to client relationship, it's very face-to-face, it's very labor-intensive, it's increasingly challenging. Salary expectations are high, the demand for RMs is very high, and on top of that, we're seeing introduction of these client retention models, which means that it's harder for RMs to move between. In parallel with that, there's also increasing cost pressures as we're seeing lower expense ratios on both active and passive products as well. And these, I think, are going to ensure a need for a change in the way that you apply that model. And we can look at some of the ways that we address that later on. If we can go to the next slide, we've got another few trends that we'll look at before we can start talking about some of the solutions as well. The number 5 on the top left is really around new asset classes and products. And I've bundled this together here, originally just drafted it and said that about the rise of alternative investments, but decided actually that it made sense to include some other points as well. Probably a couple of points here I think that I would highlight. There have been, maybe just on the private markets, hedge funds, alternative investments. Recent research by the Kaya Foundation showed that the alternative investments market is showing a compounded annual growth rate at the moment of nearly 14%. And they expect this to continue to grow over the next 5 years as well. So the attractiveness of alternative assets is continuing to grow, highly likely as a result of it being uncorrelated to traditional markets, people looking and understanding the benefits of diversification, and they're asking about these. And with that, it's the importance of noting that these will then just not be is not just available to high net worth individuals, but also the democratization of these alternative asset classes as well. And then in conjunction with that, the continued shift of wealth from to the next gen. These next generation have a much longer runway. They'll have looking for advice where they probably have a propensity to a higher level of volatility in the assets that they hold, given the longer runway and this is a changing mix of the fact that they're probably looking to accumulate and grow their assets as well. In number 6, maybe less related to Singapore, but probably still relevant to the high net worth individuals, is an increasing demand from wealth planners and wealth management firms to look beyond just providing portfolio returns. And I think a number of individuals we've spoken to have said, well, it's great, I sit with my financial planner, they tell me that my portfolio is up 10%, showing continued growth, but actually I need help as well in other areas. So should I have a life insurance policy? How do I manage my inheritance? And do I have tax liabilities if I'm looking to move locations or I'm working abroad? And sometimes this is missing. So you may be able to offer a high level of sort of advice around portfolio growth, but maybe lacking in those broader areas that your individual clients are looking at. Top right, be remiss of me to have this presentation without talking about AI, and I think we could have done an entire presentation here. There is an increasing proliferation of applications of AI and Gen AI as well. I had the benefit of sitting with 10 to 12 COOs from various banks in Singapore a couple of months back, and we spoke about Gen AI and how it was working. A number of those, well, everybody who was in the room said that this is on their radar. They're looking at it. I think what was interesting for me was just the different levels of how they were looking at it. And some of the banks there were very much doing a wait and see approach. They were keeping it in view. They were having some conversations about it. And some other attendees had said that they'd already looked at over 100 use cases and had these in flight at the moment. One of the most interesting things that I have read about this, and I'll talk about it in a minute, is that the landscape for compliance and how this is going to operate is continuing to evolve. And we just need to be cautious that if a company looks to embed a very complicated Gen AI model, that then isn't going to be sufficient once the dust is settled on the compliance landscape. It may need to be revisited and retracked. And I think as a result of that, the majority of the things that we're seeing at the moment, even especially around the Gen AI stuff, is that they still have human touch points involved. There is still that human gatekeeper. And I do feel though that we're still, as it's been said, still in the first innings on this. And over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, we're going to move and progress, and then progressively those human touch points will be negated. And just finally, for Singapore, really financial regulation continues to be a hotspot. The activities for the MAS last year in 2023 around the anti-money laundering and the regulations that came in as a result of that. I think they've recently launched their Cosmic platform as well. These are all in place to really affect, to stop things like money laundering, terrorism financing, etc. And the important point here is just to make sure that as a firm, you're well placed to be ahead of that and to stop the need for there to be any impact to your clients as well. So with that spoken, just a quick few comments from me then on how we can actually address these as firms and what we can look at. For the financial planning and awareness, I think it's important that we understand our investor segments. We have younger high net worth individuals now who are maybe arriving with different attitudes. They have different appetites for what it is that they want to see. So making sure that we can really understand the needs of our client and personalize around that. I'll share with you as well a fintech that I was recently looking at operating out of the US at the moment, where it's called Elements, run by Reese Harper, and this is actually something that they manage before the onboarding process, and they have a new prospecting piece of tool, which is really a diagnostics report. So the client will fill this in before they're even a client of yours, and they will tell you what their income is, what their savings rates are, what their real estate is worth, etc. And it really produces for them a PDF report that says, actually, your savings rate is atypically low. You have a higher concentration in your real estate than an ideal portfolio would be. And at the end of that form, it will say, why don't you give us a call? And we can talk through those specific points. And this, I think, is just changing the way that onboarding process is taking place, that prospecting portfolio is taking place, because the emphasis then is on the client to make the phone call, rather than what we're seeing typically as well. Well, now we're reaching out to clients to say, hey, would you like to speak to one of our financial advisors? And it means that the conversations become really human from the outset, and they've got real value. Number two, around the expectations around onboarding, and there are well, I think we'll hear a little bit more about later, like how do we reduce the challenges on the onboarding? For me, one of the key takeaways here, if I was looking at this, would be, let me go away and assess my existing processes. Let me look at how functional and how effective it is today, and then look at considering tooling and automated workflows, potentially with some form of embedded AI, automated handoffs, just to make sure that that process is as seamless as possible. And as I mentioned earlier, shortly we'll be able to hear from Swami about some of the solutions that Newgen's got in this space and the work that they've done. The improving of digital capabilities. One option that you have here is really to conduct a benchmarking exercise. This is something I've done quite recently with one of the local banks, just to determine whether or not your current solution is meeting the expectations and the needs of your client. And how does that digital solution fit in with the advisor-led channels that you have? Do you have a sustainable, available omni-channel platform that meets your clients and, going back to the title of this, delights them at every step of their wealth journey? And a couple of other phrases that we're hearing a lot around is things like hyper-personalization and micro-segmentation. Existingly, we would talk about potentially retail clients or early investors, your mass affluent and then into your high net worth individuals. Increasingly, we're seeing these disappear, the lines become blurred, and really it's about offering the advice that is correct and appropriate for your client rather than their particular segment. The traditional cost and the increase in trust of the traditional model. This is a great platform for an opportunity for for AI to take effect. There are opportunities for activities that are typically done by your front office staff that are non-value add to be removed and then needs to be replaced with the cognitively demanding tasks. They can use the time that's being saved then to provide an increasingly bespoke service to their clients, as well as being able to serve a greater number of clients than they are today as well. Just on to the next slide, if I can quickly. And the final slide from me then, just addressing the other four points that I raised earlier on around the new asset classes and products. First option here is just to really review your current existing products offering, understand what it is that your clients are looking for, determine whether or not you should be introducing things like private markets, hedge funds into your platform, as well as potentially starting to keep in view some of the digital asset products that are emerging, as well as things like tokenization and indexing as well. And if you wanted to go down this path, then really proactively look at it and design a distinct private market offering that's going to allow you to have that USP. On the demand for holistic services, potentially look to go beyond investment advice, looking to incorporate value-added services that are not being provided by you today. These may be, just as some examples, tax planning, things like inheritance management, philanthropic planning, which is gaining more and more traction in APAC as well. And if these aren't things that you do today, look towards partners to be able to help you, and so that you can be able to provide that holistic service to your clients. And on top of that as well, the opportunity to embed and leverage some new technologies is to make sure that you can be on point for your clients as well. So if you understand your clients' needs fully and you have an expectation that they may require a loan, for example, in the near future, you can put something in place, some technology to allow you to have that pre-planning done, so that when the client reaches out to you, you already know if they're going to be approved and what that offer can look like. Penultimate point then from me around the rise of AI implementations. The one point that I just wanted to bring up here was around the generation of CIO content and how that can help. So there is a fintech that I was looking at called Wealth.io. They have an Advisor X AI tool, which allows your RM to produce what they refer to as long-form, web-enriched, and compliant marketing consent. And this is then something that they're establishing can save your existing RMs potentially up to 80% of the time that they're doing on their marketing. Again, allowing them to put that into providing bespoke services. But we'll also hear as well, closer to home, is that item's very much US focused from Swami about a Newgen offering that does exactly the same thing, but much more focused to be sure that it's APAC compliant and it's meeting the needs of APAC. There is this point around the preparation of your data, and I think this has been quite important as well. I was listening to Amy Young of Microsoft working in their finance and data team, and she was saying about how the prevalence and how data is really going to be the rock for you here. And as part of your assessment of your internal data, you should also be looking to consider new data sources that are emerging, bringing those in, capturing the insights that you've got already, and you'll be able to then unlock a new tier of financial advice that you can provide to your clients. You'll be able to provide insights and obtain insights that you would not be able to obtain even with the longest and most thorough conversations with your client as you are today. And then finally, just on the financial regulation, they're a good option here with the abundance of regulations out there to seek similar technology solutions. We are seeing examples of AI being used to screen software, and this is something that can be brought in. And also would just highlight towards about current proactive compliance monitoring as well. And Simp also recently launched their own software on this, their SRS system, Simpos Risk Software, that allows you to proactively manage that as well. So just before I hand over to Swami, I'd just note that for the eagle-eyed among you, earlier on in my presentation, I added a quote to one of my earlier slides. And for those of you that were looking, you'll have noticed that it didn't actually have a wasn't attributed to anybody, and that's because it was generated by AI. So I don't know if you now that you've seen this presentation and we've spoken a little bit about AI, you can have a read of that and just decide for yourself whether or not you think it's got legs and whether or not you think that you're in agreement with that as well. Okay, so I'd love to hand over to Swami now. He's going to walk you through some of the offerings from Newgen.
Thanks, David. I think that's a nice trivia for the audience to catch up with. There are a lot of insights, David. I think it's not just onboarding, it's not just about giving recommendations, but yeah, the the customer segment is not so clear these days. As you rightly said, the demarcation is diminishing, and then you'll have to bring in different mix and match of products into the customer portfolio to address their needs and demands and expectations, right? So that's where I wanted to start with our perspective in terms of how we are seeing uh, the wealth management firms are structured, and where we see they could probably improve upon these opportunity areas, right? Typically, as we see the customers, most of the channel they interact with our front offices, right? As we see, relationship managers are the channel for them to interact with, right? So personally, I don't want to go and disturb my RM, right? So I always like to use digital channels, right? It's all about taking uh, maybe product recommendation, or I want to drop a message to my RM. I'll just go to my RM and then drop a message there and get a response directly from there, right? I don't like to call, fix an appointment, and meet the uh, RM, for example, right? So we have mix and match of expectations, as you rightly said. Multi-channel, omni-channel is the way to go, right? We have to open up all the channels and make it easy for the customer, because the clients would want to start with mobile and then come back to web and then give a piece of document to the RM and then send something on email uh, to get that journey completed, right? They don't care how you manage it in the back end, right? So we have to make it easy for the client from that perspective, right? So that's where we want to make sure that the front office, middle office, and back office, all of these are tied to a unified system, which makes it easy and then gives a lot of transparency and visibility to the business operations, right? So often the gaps which you see here between front office and middle office, these are the typical handoffs, right? So these are the, I would say, these are the slippages in the processes what we have observed, which leads to dissatisfaction or data integrity issues and all of that, right? So what we try to do with NewgenONE as a platform which helps to automate all three of this, front, middle, and back. It ties all of them, orchestrates end-to-end business processes using a stack of tools, which is under NewgenONE, right? So let's dive into some of the case studies which we have uh, or as a reference, right? So it gives a bit of perspective uh, for all of us today, where we have implemented similar solutions for leading wealth management firms across the globe. We've just picked up a few of the case studies out here. Uh, One of the recent ones we are implementing is for a global wealth management player. Again, what we have seen is there are a lot of opportunities in terms of client reporting. We have drastically reduced the time RMs will have to go and scrub the data from multiple sources and put the report together for the client, right? So that's something we have helped them. In today's, we have kept it under 15, 20 minutes kind of a reporting, where the RM can personalize the way how the report needs to be presented to the client and then get it out to the client. And also, as we see, this market is highly regulated in terms of different compliances. It's not about the in-country operations and the compliances, but also the global compliances the firm need to adhere to, right? So that's something we are ensuring as part of the platform, and we have delivered that for various clients across the globe, right? And what we are also observing is lending is a trend which is picking up. It's not just onboarding and KYC, and also giving various financial assistance to the clients. It could be a margin fund or it could be a mortgage, which needs to be extended to the client using their existing portfolio. That's where we see a lot of opportunities for credit assessment, unified single pane glass view, so that the client is able to get an instant uh, approval in terms of going through so many complex and manual processes, typically using spreadsheets with macros, right? So that's something we want to kill and make sure all of these are automated and we bring them into the system in a seamless way, right? Uh, Potentially, there are four areas which we look at it in terms of the opportunity areas for the wealth management firms to tap on. One is definitely onboarding, because onboarding has become so complex in terms of the data available in the market. It is scattered across different sources. We need to do credit check, background, PEP check, and so many other factoring factors need to be considered within the platform as part of the onboarding process, right? It's not just onboarding, the world is so dynamic. There are a lot of changes to the profile, the country, and so many other aspects. And it needs to be continuously monitored, right? Which goes under the maintenance and servicing bucket. And as well as when you're offboarding a client, you need to make sure their entitlements are taken care and the financial obligations are completed, regulatory updates are taken care, and they're offboarded across all your systems, because there could be so many transaction processing systems where the status need to be updated as well, right? So all of these are to be looked at in a unified manner instead of just automating bits and pieces of these use cases, which would again bring in the disjoint processes, right? And we have also started seeing quite a big trend in terms of client documentation. This has gained a lot of priority because we used to see a simple template being managed, and somebody in back office would do a mail merge and send it out. But this has gained a lot of attention these days. When you are sending a letter to the client or contract or even onboarding docket, all of these are consistently reviewed uh, with a very thorough process in place, and also adding these clauses and regulatory aspects into the client documentation is also fairly automated, right? So we need tools to make sure you're sending the right data to the client. Even it could be a fat card declaration, right? Nobody wants to receive a blank template these days. They want things to be populated. At least you tell me what I am, then I would go about change it instead of doing it from the scratch, right? So a lot of client expectations have improved on that space as well, and we are seeing that's an opportunity area for the firms to pick up. Second is definitely the private banking lending space, right? So this is the area we are continuously seeing new use cases are evolving, and there are a lot of tools available for spreading and financial calculation, and what is the profitability of the client before you go and extend additional offer to them, give a better interest rate to them, right? So these assessments are to be done and to be presented to the credit ops team in a single window, so that they are able to take a right decision and give a go ahead to the client, right? And I'll talk about a little bit more in detail some of these use cases. And definitely client reporting has been consistent, because we see there are a lot of systems being used in wealth space, and these are external systems as well, where we'll have to bring in the data. And we are also using Gen AI to use some of these use cases in terms of enabling better client and faster client reporting, and reducing the time RMs are spending in creating these reports manually, right? AI is something which we are embedding across all the solutions. One is around decisioning, which I would also talk about it in subsequent slide, as well as the Gen AI use cases, right? So again, these are trainable models. We do have models around data as well as on documents, so that when somebody is giving you a passport, you can upfront check the passport and make sure this is what it is, and then extract the data from it, and also do a redaction of content if there are PI data present in that, right? So all of these use cases bring in more efficiency, bring in controls upstream in the channel instead of bringing a document downstream and then start doing the processing, right? A little bit detail into the client lifecycle management. What we are looking at is the complete lifecycle in terms of tracking it from the lead management, and then nurturing the RM in terms of giving the right information to the client, and then also onboarding docket being prepared by the same platform, ensuring the due diligence of the jurisdiction is taken care, and ensuring the seamless onboarding happens, right? So this could happen in few hours, few days, again, based on the client complexity. The declarations of source of funds and so many other things are to be documented in the wealth management world, right? So all of those are tied into a single system. Of course, there could be multiple systems which need to be integrated, where orchestration is very important for anyone to look at, right? So, for example, if you look at the typical landscape, what we see is it could be quite complex, right? As you see, there are a lot of boxes you see on the surround, right? So these systems are there, and they have their own purpose, right? In terms of core systems, or there could be alternate data providers or FX systems, which are giving the rates to your system, right? But what we are looking at is to make sure that there is one single orchestration framework which can talk to anything and everything and bring in the data and make the life of your KYC manager easy, right? And make the life of your RM and the approvers easy, so that they're able to look at it in one single screen and give a go ahead to get the client onboarded, right? If there are missing documents, again, send a link to the client and get those documents in digitally using tools like SyncPass and other digital methods of authentication to ensure that the KYC is also digitalized to a greater extent, right? And the same template also gets applied into the credit origination space, right? So nothing else has changed, right? So you might have your limits managed in Avlog or Temenos or any of the core systems. Again, the assessment which you do in the middle of the screen, that gets changed, right? So you might pull in the client data, you might see last 6 years what I have done with this client and what is the profitability of the client, and can I cross sell upsell any of these engagements with this client. And typically the letter generation is a complex part. It's not a simple two-pager offer letter which you might want to give, but yeah, based on the risk and other underwriting aspects which you're doing, you might want to generate a detailed assessment here, right? And as well, we also have seen there are external agencies who have active participation, right, in the framework. Well, let's say you have a mortgage and you want an external legal firm to give an opinion, right? And you will have to send the job to them through a secure portal and get the response as well, right? It's not just internal process which we recommend to automate. Even there are stakeholders who are outside your ecosystem. We need to hook them onto the system, maybe through a system or through any of the automated methods, so that we are able to have a complete visibility and traceability of the processes we are targeting to automate, right? From a lending perspective, it's not just about giving a lending offer. It's also about monitoring it, right? How the portfolio is working and how the client is performing, and also making sure if there are any early warning signals, so that you can give more attention to a particular account and do some risk mitigation. RM who might have fiduciary interest, they would be able to change the fund allocation and go about doing that, right? And all of this, as you could see, is all happening on one single unified platform. These are industry standard templates which our customers have been using with flexibility to change, right? So for each of the use cases which they go about automating, right? And what we also have seen is there is a huge amount of churning also happens in the market, where there are a switch between customers getting uh, change between one firm to other. There is a constant movement of this pattern as well, right? Where we can also look at a bulk import of a portfolio and do assessment of these portfolios through a structured rule engine. And this rule engine would actually pull in data from Bloomberg and Refinitiv and other data providers, right? So that you're able to assess the value of the portfolio. And if there are stocks missing in your portfolio, you might go about adding them in your backend systems to enable these sort of onboarding, right? So typically, tying back to what David also has talked about, is lack of products in the portfolio is also sort of disappointment to the customers, right? So that when we look at these assessments, we could filter out what are the products which are not available. The firm could go about onboarding them and get the output as well generated, right, in the preferred format, and help the underwriting and credit team to do the product activation in the backend. All right. Moving on to the next segment, what we also see is quite a lot of reporting requirements, right? So through Newgen, what we do is we enable clients to generate report in the way they want it, right? One is definitely the portfolio reports, contracts, for example. The contracts are so dynamic, you will need authoring, you will need co-editing, and all these capabilities, right? All of that sit within the same platform, right? So it can be on-demand generation, it can be a bulk generation, it can be assisted editing capability which the RM would want, right? All of that sits within the same platform, right? So for example, So outputs like this, for example, the portfolio monitoring report, could run into 30, 40, or 100 pages, right? So this gets created using the same platform. If there are new products being launched, right? So the RM can quickly get a letter generated, review this, and make few edits to make it more personalized to the client, and then get it out from the system directly, right? So there are a few examples which I wanted to talk about. AI is something definitely we have been working on quite consistently. We do have the ready models as well as trainable models as well using the customer data. Uh, some of the use cases which we have already implemented around debt collection, credit risk monitoring, as well as underwriting. Right? All of these are part of the system. Let's say that we do have a churn prediction model, which has to be industry specific, and this will be fine tuned using the client data to see which customer is engaging with you more, and then what kind of products you can sell or recommend to these customers, right? And then you can have a better engagement rate with these customers as well, right? The second aspect, what we have also worked on is not just the data, but also the document part of it, right? Let's say if a client is giving you a document, you might want to go inside and then perform data extraction. And sometimes these could be structured or semi-structured or even unstructured documents, which you look at, where you might want to scrub the data or extract the data, right? We do have models which can identify this document. Let's say this is a passport. I just need to identify this and make sure this is the right document is provided to me. And then I would go about extracting the content from within the document itself, right? So that's something the AI can also help us in achieving a next level of automation, right? So moving further from there, what we have also done is we have launched Newgen Marvin. This is our Gen AI capability. Uh, I've just picked up a couple of use cases which I thought would be relevant for our conversation today. One of the use cases I've picked up here is a chatbot kind of a capability where the platform is able to read a particular document. It could be offer letter, it could be a product documentation, it could be any such document which you can train the platform, and it can help the reader. It could be RM in this case, or even the client who want to understand what is in this document, for example, right? And they can ask the questions, and then the engine can start giving the responses as well. It can give the further prompts through which the customer can engage with this document itself, right? So it could be a few hundred-page document. We don't expect everyone to go through it, and of course, it doesn't hallucinate because in our use case, we are referencing the responses back to the document and the content within the document itself to make sure these are backed up by facts. As well, we do have a summarization model. Let's say I have a big contract. I want to know what is the summary of this, right? The system can generate that and give it to me, right? Instead of me going through each of these documents. The second use case is all about a communication and recommendation engine. Over here, uh, we are looking at helping. This is more of assistive use case for the RM, where the system can help RMs in creating a message. It could be a product recommendation or a write-up to be put up to a client, and there could be certain inputs the system can receive, and it can help in generating output, which can be consumed by RM for engaging with the client, right? This could be using past communications or recommendations based on the pattern the customer has been investing, and also cross-sell and upsell of different products. For example, ESG is one of the important aspect where we are seeing customers are more aware of these concepts and they would want to invest in these kind of products. And all of these kind of engagements can be triggered using the communication platform as well, right? So to sum it up, so what we do is NewgenONE is a single unified automation stack, right, which allows us to do anything and everything around automation, starting from AI, data modeling, process automation, case management, workflows, reporting, content management, OCR, as well as retention and disposition tracking of documents throughout the life cycle, right? So that's what is under the hood, which helps us in doing all of these various use cases and even much more, right? We just picked up few of these use cases for our discussion today. We can go above and beyond in achieving your automation dream, right? A quick summary of Newgen. Been there in the industry for more than 3 decades, recognized by leading analysts like Gartner, Forrester, G2, and Aspire for the product positioning, and the most comprehensive product stack for process automation across the market, present globally across over 74 countries. And that's what you have for today, yeah, from me. Back to you, Harsha.
I'll take it from here. Thank you, Swami. Great to be here. This is not my first time sitting a session, listen to our view on wealth management market trends, drivers, and client focus. Neither is my first time listening to Newgen's presentation on their product offering and capability. But I still find it quite fascinating to see how two organizations come together with in-depth understanding of the most trendy industry use cases and the ability to combine business needs with technology enablers. I'm the partner manager at Simpos, looking after the Simpos-Newgen relationship, and would like to conclude this webinar by sharing some context on our partnership collaboration and strategic vision. How this partnership have come about is because we truly believe this partnership can help clients transform with a holistic view and approach to reduce complexity in solving business challenges and harmonizing processes. So nowadays, most clients look for easy configuration, easy adoption, easy integration, speed to market, and future scalability. And uniquely, this is the exact proposition of Newgen. And because Newgen is workflow-oriented and rule-based, it can be used for any kind of process revamp to achieve operational optimization and improve client experience. So suitable for wide range of banking use cases across different functional areas. These use cases likely have high relevance to most organizations. So how Simpos work with Newgen is the same way as how we work with any other solution providers, adding our domain knowledge and consultancy skill sets to drive project implementation. We bring in functional expertise and industry perspectives to help shape the business strategy, define target operating model, and drive end-to-end change management initiatives. We have already partnered with Newgen to revolutionize a credit application process for a private bank with a low-code credit origination system, which if you see on our company LinkedIn page, you shall find a project spotlight article elaborating on the project scope, key deliverables, and tangible benefits. Our partnership model has been proven and tested, and we hope to replicate such success story and have a great outreach in the banking community. So the synergy we see is to take our market engagement insights and project delivery experience to augment Newgen's product strength. We have formed a roadmap with Newgen, and we hope this is just the start of an exciting journey to bring innovation and make impact. And we would like to end this webinar by positioning ourselves in the next slide as your trusted digital transformation partner. Having said that, I think we can open up the floor to see if anyone have any questions, any thoughts to share, and back to you, Acha.
Sure. Thanks for sharing your insights on Newgen and Simpulse's partnership. So we're open to any questions that we receive from the audience.
So, David, by the time we might get in a few questions, right? So, I just want to kick off some of your thought process around Gen AI adoption, right? Because everybody is talking about Gen AI. And how can a firm protect themselves from technology inspection or regulators looking into it and see, what is inside your Gen AI and how can you open up really? Because this is like a black box, right? So, what do you think are the initial preparation someone would have to do to get into this journey?
Yeah, it's a good question, Swami. Thank you. I don't position myself to be an expert on AI and Gen AI, just for complete transparency here. But one of the points that are sort of repeatedly hearing at the moment is that given the uncertainty around some of the potential compliance and regulatory matters related to AI, most of the clients we speak to are looking internally at the moment as to how they can leverage it. Very few are offering anything that is client facing beyond maybe the existing chatbots or self-service tools that they have, but rather they're looking as you'd highlighted, to some of those tools that can facilitate internal automation. And I think this is a key place to start, and sort of agrees with most of the comments that we're hearing from the clients. In conjunction with that, it's around looking at specific use cases. So maybe looking to have a very specific problem solved, or a specific small language model that solves something internally for you, rather than trying to create something holistic and expansive. And part of the reason for that is because it makes it easier to embed any compliance that you may need within that, and it makes it easier to see that actually coming to life and being useful. But I have no doubt, though, that once these tools and these models are actually enabled, it's going to be easier and easier to do subsequent models, because you can see how they're being worked. And then once the transparency continues to evolve around how that's going to work on the compliance and regulatory front, I think that will really be, that will be the second innings that I mentioned earlier, and to where we're going to see this really taking effect, and then that's going to have the biggest impact on the clients externally.
I think that's a great start, because, as you said, creating a model which is very much pointed to a specific use case is really the key, instead of trying it around across all the journeys. I think that's going to be a quick win as well, right?
I think, Archana, there are people chatting. They're not exactly sure how to enable or to answer to ask questions. Is there a button where they can click on, or is it a access that you need to grant?
So sure, everyone has the access to share their questions via chat only. There's an option called questions.
Understand. Let's just communicate that to the audience, because I think the mic has been disabled. So that means they would have to type the question on the chat, is it?
Yes, yes.
Okay, got it.
So the questions can come in via chat.
So I think maybe
So
just give another minute for people to type. Yeah.
yeah, so there's one question that I've received from Sagar. It says how we can support region-specific compliance framework with respect to wealth management use case.
I think region-specific compliances. Yeah, I think it's a mix of technology as well as the best practice, or how we interpret the regulations, right? So one is, we typically work along with the consultants, like the SynPows, because they would bring in the regulation as such, right, in terms of what to comply, how do we enter into contract, what are the terms and conditions, right? And then we would translate into the rule engine from Newgen perspective, right? So where we would compartmentalize the solution for different geographies. One of the global banks we have rolled out, where we have rolled out to more than 40 countries, and the regulations of each of these countries are versioned, and that these are hosted in a single platform, right? So that would be technically facilitated using the Newgen engine, because your forms would be different, fields and the regulatory requirements would be different. The frequency in which you would screen the customers would differ based on the risk score, right? All of that would be different. David, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think all very valid points. And the only thing I would probably add to that is that, there are nuances of as a region, the regulations are very different across the countries, and very different, again, significantly different from when you're looking at EMEA in the US. So my only point to say would be to make sure that you're working with somebody that understands the regulations and how those are actually applied. The making a mistake in those inputs, or a misunderstanding of those regulations, especially when you're doing some form of system implementation, can have significant ramifications if you then have to retrospectively go and change that. So all I would say is that it sort of highlights the importance of working with a company that knows the local regulations and potentially has done that implementation before.
So, Sagar, I hope your question is answered. So, if there's no more questions, then thanks, Swami and David, for helping us navigate through the wealth management landscape. I look forward to host you again with more questions that we will receive through our audience. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for joining.
Good day. See you.